Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. My name is Chester Hall, owner and operator of Black Flower Apparel, and to my right, I have Mr. Russell Ivory III. Please give it up for him. All right. Hey. All right. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm originally from Southeast San Diego, located in the southern part of California. I grew up there, and I actually moved when I was 19, 20. I was going to college, I was playing baseball, and that didn't last too long. And then from there is when I started moving around the country. I went to Alabama with a buddy of mine that was going to school out there, and I thought I was gonna go walk on, play baseball there, but that didn't happen. Right. So I did end up staying out there for about 3 or 4 months, and I was like, man, it's awesome out here. I mean, different people, different culture, different women. You know, I mean, when you're 19 years old, that's a big thing, a deciding factor of what you do and where you go. So, right. Sit out there for about 3 or 4 months, and I also had lost my mom around that time. So, appreciate it. So, going home was kind of empty. So I decided, instead of going home to San Diego, I was going to move up to Oakland, California, with some buddies of mine that was going to school up there and have been living up there for a couple of years, and I used to go back and forth to visit them. So that's when I moved up to the Bay Area, and man, from there, Atlanta. I stayed out in Atlanta. I stayed out in Chicago for a while. I did some crusade work with a church I was involved with, and I'm still a part of, but got to travel around the country and see a lot of places, go into a lot of neighborhoods. A journey, I would say, for me, because I was able to see so many other people and how they were living, and it wasn't just how I was raised in my little box. It opened up a lot of things to me. So from there, ended up back out here at Shipyard, worked at the shipyard, went to the apprentice school, trade school, which was a blessing. Got in there, and still there, and trying to figure out what's the next move.
Okay.
Next move, my best move.
Good enough. So, excuse me. So, part of his moves that he's been working on, actually, he is here because he is an author of 2 books. All right. The book is called Watch Me Grow, and he actually has a second one called Watch Me Grow: The Blueprint, Volume 2. All right. So he is a published author, and that's why he is sitting here with us today. So tell us about your book, Watch Me Grow. What is this all about?
I'll start off with it was probably around 2006 when I actually started reading, and the reason I started reading, I got back into church after leaving for a while. And God was like, one thing I always prayed for was wisdom and knowledge. And he said, wisdom will come. He said, knowledge you need to seek. And you could do that in books. You could do that in reading. You could do that in reading about people that made a difference in the world, that made a change in their lives. And so through reading, I ran into Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I didn't know exactly what it was about, but I knew it was a bestseller. I heard Oprah talk about it and different people. So I picked up that book, and about chapter 2, I realized, man, this guy is telling a story, but he's implemented things about finances. He's educating through the story. And I said, at that moment, I said, man, God, give me a storyline that I could implement some of these things, and it's a storyline that would have attracted me when I was a young person, that I would have wanted to read and kept my attention. And so Rich Dad Poor Dad inspired this, and I also have a little Sister Soldier, coldest winter ever vibe going on in there, because you know it was that book caught my attention, and it was something that I could relate to. And so that's how Watch Me Grow came about 6 years after the fact. And then now 2020 is when I started working on it 6 years ago, and I published it just 2020 this year. So it's been a journey.
Okay.
You know, it's definitely been a journey.
And this here are the 4 different types of people, and he called this the cash flow quadrant. So E stands for employee, S stands for self-employed, small business, or specialist, like a doctor or a lawyer. B stands for big business, 500 employees or more, and I stands for investor. Now the distinction here is this, is that each of these are 4 different types of people. They have 4 different tax laws for all 4 different types of people, and this is throughout the world. But it was my poor dad who always said to me, you know, son, go to school so you can get a job. So my poor dad wanted me to be an employee like him. And there's nothing wrong with that and all this, except the tax laws are the worst for employees. As Warren Buffett says, you know, he, as a business owner and investor, he pays a lower percentage rate than the employees. And many employees are having a tough time today. Not only is there high gas prices, but there's going to be higher taxes. My mother wanted me to become a doctor or a specialist or a small business person. And I said to my mom, S stands for smart. She says, you got a good point there, because I didn't do well in school, so I wasn't going to make it there. It was my rich dad who advised me to become an entrepreneur or a big business owner like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, Michael Dell, all those guys who created Facebook and Yahoo and all this, or Google. And he wanted me to become an investor. So he started me playing the game of Monopoly, you know, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So I learned to be an investor, and I learned to be an entrepreneur. So the good news.
When did you decide that you were going to actually start writing?
I decided, I want to say it had to be about 2015.
Okay.
2015, 2016. You talking about writing, watching me grow, or writing in general?
Writing in general.
Oh,
yeah.
That's another story. So that's man.
Okay.
I don't even really like to mention and put it out there, but I have a relative, my cousin.
Really?
Yeah.
We're going to bleep that name out just on the same page. We're going to bleep that out so nobody knows.
So, but I mean, like now, you know, we haven't been communication like that. You know, I speak to his grandma, which is my dad's first cousin.
Okay.
I just talked to her a couple of days ago. But, you know, I haven't really hung out and talked to him in a couple of years, probably like 5 years or whatever. But before that, we hung out pretty on a regular basis or whatever. And so watching him develop, you know, he started early, you know, I'm 15, 16 years old, and him doing comedy and this and that, back and forth to LA. And, you know, me, I played baseball. So it was like when we was 17, 18, we were supposed to meet up in the middle. And unfortunately, you know, what I was doing didn't pan out with the baseball. I mean, I got drafted, but it didn't go further than that. And he kept going, which is a blessing, you know. But watching him, I believe, poured into me as far as the creativity of creating and writing.
Okay.
And so I actually have a book ready to go called Just Write, W-R-I-T-E.
Okay.
Because of a conversation me and him had, and it was an inspirational conversation where he said, we went out, we was hanging out, we went to the beach, came back to my dad's house, and we was in my room, and he was like, so what do you want to do? And I was like 20-something years old. And so I was like, I want to write.
Okay.
And he was saying, well, just write. Now, mind you, this is after Drumline, this is after he got a show on Nickelodeon, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I felt a certain type of way, because I felt like I'm telling you my dream, and you actually can help out with that.
Right.
And I'm expecting you to say, well, let me make some calls. Let me get you in the room with writers,
right?
You know, and let you do. And I just need you to get me in the room. I take care of the rest,
right? You
know, I'm expecting the conversation to go like that, and all he gave me was just 2 words, just write.
Right.
And I said, you know, instantly I kind of felt taken back, like, why are you gonna ask me if that's all you're gonna tell me? So I felt a certain type of way, but it was a split second when I seen the word behind the word, which was God speaking through him to me. And God was saying, you haven't written anything. You want to write. In my head, I had been writing for like a year and a half.
Okay.
You know, I might have written titles or whatever, but I wasn't involved in developing as a writer. But I'm telling him this is my life dream.
Right. And
God was like, you feel a certain type of way when he said just write, but you haven't wrote. You haven't even started your part. You haven't done anything. But you're gonna tell him and expect him to open the door for you. And God was like, first of all, I open all the doors anyway.
Right.
You know, so let's get that out the way.
Okay.
So he was like, you know, just write. And I said, I didn't even really respond to him. That was like the end of the conversation, but it's something that always stuck with me. And that's when I really first just started writing down ideals and mapping them out and structuring them a little bit and looking into how you write. And it was a question we talked about off camera before we started, and you know, probably bring it up, but I said when I started writing, I first started pulling from scripts.
Okay.
So I thought you write a movie idea like a script, because everything was like, okay, I want to write movies and shows. So that's why my writing style is really visual.
Okay.
Because I feel like everything. Now, this is one project. Since I've been writing, I've written over 200 projects in my catalog that I've started. All of them aren't finished.
Right.
Most of them aren't finished, but I have like synopsis of it.
Okay.
I have the, you know, this, that, and the other. So, and most of them was from a movie. First conception was a movie. So that's kind of how I wrote, and that's how this came about. But this is more of a passion project. All the other projects is, you know, movies, comedies, dramas, love stories, this, that, and the other. And this one particular is a passion project because it's meant for the youth to get an ideal and get a little game about what life is about and about changing and transforming their lives in whatever situation they're coming from. Black, white, middle class, low income, dirt poor, to, you know, somebody that's struggling to live up to what their dad accomplished in the Ivy League school.
Right.
You know, so my writing style and my writing started when that conversation with me and my cousin started, and I realized and was convicted that you're not doing what you say you want to do, and you need to start doing it. So I've been writing off and on for 15 years.
Okay.
That was a long question. That was a long answer.
No, that's perfect.
Question.
That's great.
15 years.
That's great. Exactly. That's what you're looking for, though. That's great.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's great. Yeah. So, all right. So, pretty much, I read the book. I've read both of the books. They're page turners, so you can get through them. If you're an avid reader, you can knock these jokers out in a night, okay? Because they're that good. But when I was reading through them, like I said, you talked about, you know, how you wrote kind of like you're writing for film scripts, I guess you could say, and that's how I kind of got that visual. When you're reading through books, you kind of tend to put people and places, kind of like have an avatar of who each character is. So are any of these people in the book, or any of the characters, based on people that you know or have come across in your lifetime?
It's funny that my cousin, who I haven't spoken to probably in like a year and a half, called me last night out of the blue, and she was like, I didn't know that stuff about you. And she thought the book was nonfiction.
Okay.
And I had to tell her, no, it is fiction. And that a lot of the book was loosely based on people that I knew from Chicago. I have a mentor. I was in a program, Victory Outreach, and I had a mentor, and still do, a brother that was from Chicago. And when I went to Atlanta to this program, I was there for like a couple of weeks, and they sent me to Chicago, and I was in Chicago for like 4 months living there and doing a crusade in the South Side, in Inglewood, backyard to be exact. But so living there for that period of time and being under a mentorship with somebody that grew up there, that a lot of the story, and especially the beginning, his mom came to him and told him, hey, I had a dream that you got killed and you need to leave Chicago. And from there, he had a family member in Atlanta, and they, started put the wheels in motion, and he actually left. And so that part, and then kind of, I have a buddy, Glenn, who actually went to
Glenn?
An amazing young man. Since he was a young man, he played basketball, and I'm telling you, man, this guy was phenomenal. Practicing with Michael Jordan.
Oh,
you know
wow.
what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah. And so he had a scholarship. He went to Pepperdine.
Okay.
And he ended up getting hurt and played some semi-pro ball and stuff though. But he had a scholarship going to Pepperdine, and we used to go up there and visit him. And so I used that for the uncle who moved on a scholarship from Chicago to LA and went to Pepperdine. So I took that from him, and man, just all parts, God just started dropping things in my heart and start mapping out how the story was gonna go. I just wanted to do it, and he was connecting the dots, and I was just following. He laid the dots out, and I was just connecting them. So if you don't like it, you need to pray about it. Talk to him about it. You know what I'm saying? I just was doing my part. That's all that is. If you like it, I like him too.
It was really cool because I actually, my uncle, my youngest, or my mother's youngest sibling is my uncle, Uncle Steve, big up Unc. He reminded me a lot of Uncle G, and pretty much as far as him marrying his, his trophy wife, I guess you'd kind of call her, but ultimately, even she has the kind of like a streak, like almost like a street savvy streak about her, and that was very reminiscent of my aunt that they married and stuff like that. And I was really interested, and I kind of kept seeing those people play out in my head as I was reading through it, and it was really interesting because a lot of the things that were in the book, as far as finances and wealth management and books to read and just basic economics, they poured that stuff into me and my cousins. So it was almost kind of like, just, roundabout way. It was just talking to me about the same things I had been listening to and learning about for a long period of time. But, to spin off into that next question, there is a lot of information in these two books, a lot about wealth management and even networking and giving back to your community. How has that helped you, in the movement through your life, I guess you could say?
People that influenced the book. A lot of it, probably like 70 or 80% of it is influenced by what I want to happen. Okay. So, speaking it into existence,
there you go.
I figure writing it might be just a little better, So with those things I learned about wealth and business, I started my first business when I was like 21, 22 years old. Okay. And
what was that, if you don't mind me asking?
It was distribution. No.
Okay.
No, but to go with that distribution, the distribution came from me wanting to buy some servers to make websites to sell these websites to beauticians and barbers, and it was like a first Facebook.
Okay, right.
A networking thing, and I needed servers so I could charge for hosting. And so one of the ways I knew how to make a couple $1,000s wasn't necessarily the correct way, but that 2,000, I said, well, that came pretty quick. 4,000,
right?
And I was like, well, after 10, and then 10 came, and so it was just a couple of years later,
right?
Never made the website, never got the servers,
but he still can. So if you need something,
now I can do the websites myself. So I'm moving forward in writing. It's pushing me and encouraging me for starting and pursuing my businesses. And developing as a entrepreneur and as a business person, and all the things I've written about are things that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's haven't just made me, but you know, in order to do that, you got to prepare now.
Right.
I believe.
Right.
You know, in order to get where you want to go, you got to start preparing now, and then you know those things will open up. So far, I'm haven't become that entrepreneur, but you know, I've become an author, a published author,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool. It's something that's been in the works.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I started a business, and that was to a literal business for LLC, and I needed to have receipts for money in case whatever did happen, which ended up happening. But whatever happens, I felt that okay, you need receipts, you know. And that was the first time when I started my first business, and it was Connected LLC.
Okay.
Out of San Diego, and since then, man, I've been LegalZoom. We were good friends. I'll throw a DBA or an LLC out of there, come up with that for real quick.
Okay.
So it's development in progress.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I hear that. So in the book, the main character was part of a group, a family, I guess you'd say, called the Organization.
Yes.
All right. Tell us a little about what the foundation for the organization is, and you know, what is your feeling about organized life? I guess you could say it like that.
So, growing up in Southern California, are we talking about gang life?
Yeah.
So, the gang life / organization. So, my experience growing up in Southern California was, it was really unorganized gang activity. Huge, especially growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, where crack was epidemic, and with crack it was just money. And you know, with money comes carnage, death, drive-bys, just a lot of carnage. You know, I went to so many funerals before I even graduated.
Okay.
You know, and with that was that type of disorganization in a organization, in a gang. It just didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
You know, I grew up in San Diego, where I was like 4th generation, so I had a lot of family spread throughout San Diego, and each section a different gang, but my literal family.
Okay.
So belonging to one gang and having to these people be my enemies, it just didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
You know, growing up at first, you know, but that didn't stop me from idolizing gangsters.
Okay.
My uncles, before I was even born, I had 2 uncles that was murdered due to gang violence. My cousins that I looked up to, and just that time period was, I wrote something called When Giants Ruled the Earth, and it was about it was about those guys that's coming out, man. They had 22-inch arms.
Wow.
Their chest was humongous, and these is friends and family and friends of family friends that I was like, these guys are giants, and neither you are gonna raise up to that, or you're gonna shrink back and avoid that, you know. And I wasn't going nowhere. So if I had to match that, and this is me as a man, 2nd, 3rd grader, so I don't know how old, you know, this is 5, 6, 7 years old.
Okay.
Looking at this and developing in my head a map to where I was gonna go.
Right.
And prison was definitely part of it. You know, I was talking to my cousin last night, and it was her brothers and my other uncles and them. We were talking about how often my mom, who was one of the only ones that drove out of 9 siblings, used to take my grandmother to visit my uncles.
Okay.
And so I was a kid, a baby, she used to take me.
Okay.
You know, so I grew up going to prison, seeing my uncles, visiting my uncles, you know, my grandma and my mom, and these guys was so, I guess you could look at it like the cowboys and Indians back in the days when everybody wanted to be cowboys and shooting guns and stuff, and looked up to these guys, and I just looked up to them and admired them. It was strength. It was with them and the guys in their gang or their friends, it was loyalty. It looked like it. Well, they in prison, so you got to stick together.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
And it just seemed, I accepted that, and I looked forward to going to prison and getting swole, getting buff, and earning my stripes while I was there. And it wasn't a problem. And that's when they came out with the statistic: 1 in 3 black males will either end up in prison or be dead by the time he's 18. And I remember we went on a field trip to the police station. They built a brand new police station in Skyline area, and one of the police officers who, I was pretty much the same way when I was a kid, and I was talking to him about his guns and telling him I know how to shoot a gun and this, that, and the other, and how to, wrap it up and don't touch the bullets and this and that. I'm being smart with him. So when he brought out the example of 3 black men, 3 that would be going to prison by the time 18, I was one of the 3 that he used as an example.
Okay.
And I looked to my left and to my right, and these other guys that was standing up there with me, I was like, yeah, I know they're not going to be the one out of this 3.
Right.
It's probably going to be me. And this is like first grade.
Wow.
So I said, well, if it's going to be me, either I'm going to die or I'm going to go to prison. I'd rather go to prison, I'll be around. But if I'm going to die, then I might as well go out with a bang. And
mass incarceration means that we've got a very high rate of incarceration, historically, comparatively. And the other thing is the rate of incarceration is so high, so socially concentrated, that we're no longer incarcerating the individual, but we're incarcerating whole social groups. The rate of incarceration now is about 5 times higher than it was historically. Historically it was 100 per 100,000, now it's about 500 per 100,000. If we look at prison, if we add jail to that, it's about 700 per 100,000. Nowhere in the world incarcerates as much as we do. We've seen extremely high rates of exposure to the criminal justice system for African American men with very low levels of schooling. So if we think about black men who were born in the late 1970s and who are growing up through the American prison boom of the 1980s and the 1990s, the chances that they're going to serve time in state or federal prison if they dropped out of high school is about 70%. So going to prison for that group of black men with very low levels of schooling, that's become a normal life event, and that's really only happened in the last 10 years. We're at this point now where there's about 1.2 million African American children with a parent who's incarcerated. That's about 1 in 9. The research shows the kids who experience parental incarceration have diminished school achievement, they have behavioural problems, depressive symptoms, acting out, and there's also evidence that these kinds of negative effects associated with parental incarceration are concentrated more among boys than among girls. And there's a very real risk here that incarceration becomes an inherited trait. The underlying issue is we've chosen prison as a way to respond to that problem of crime. And there are a whole variety of ways that we could have chosen to respond to that problem of crime. We've chosen the response of the deprivation of liberty. And we've chosen the response of the deprivation of liberty for a historically aggrieved group whose liberty in the United States was never firmly established to begin with.
Go out with a bang. And, so by the time I was like 15, I was like, looked like I might make it to 18.
Okay.
I didn't have a plan.
All right.
So I was like, wow, kind of just moved along or whatever from there. But as far as organization, an organized organization is beautiful, I believe. And in the book, I have it in the book because what I want to do in real life is bring together the organizations and have them invest in their hoods with stores, with beauty salons, with everything that we consume as a people. We should try to own, and not just the organization, but if you could get the organizations together and pivot from the things that bring in the money right now, and we could pivot to things that are legal
Right.
and prosperous and builds a community. And we need pockets of organizations everywhere. I mean, a church is an organization.
Right.
You have different organizations, but it's what they're doing. What are they doing with those organizations? Are they encouraging? Are they keeping each other accountable? Or, you know what I'm saying? But I believe of having pride in where you're from. I'm from Southeast San Diego, and till I die, that's where I'm from. But I've expanded to where first it was just Southeast San Diego, then it was San Diego as a whole, then it was the West Coast, and then I moved out here to Virginia when I was like 20-some years old, and I was like, man, it's people from Virginia that and it's people from down south, and people that's cool and that's loyal and that's ready to ride with you and do whatever. And so it expanded, and I believe these organizations that we can have, I want to start financial organizations.
Okay.
Me and my buddy of mine in Arizona, we actually started planning for starting these different financial groups.
Okay.
And it was something I had a dream about. And we compete, we together, but we compete with each other.
Right.
On investing.
Okay.
On building and stuff like that. So.
Gotcha. And it's interesting because I was at a conference, small local conference back in my hometown, and one of the gentlemen that was a guest speaker along with myself, his name is Wayne Bell, and he was talking to the kids. It was a youth conference, and he was speaking with the popular, about the people that were there about the differences between a gang versus a fraternity, because he's a Kappa. And pretty much when you looked at it, they were probably very similar to each other, with the exception of intent. What was their purpose? So if your purpose is to pretty much, make money, hustle, do all, things that may or may not be legal, then that pretty much kind of funnel you into the category of being a gang, versus if you're trying to uplift, educate, give back, community service, stuff like that, that may even put you into the category of being a fraternity. Not to mention that you had to go to college in order to be in a fraternity.
Right.
So, as far as talking about organizations, I would love to see more organizations get back to their communities, especially trying to rotate and flip that black dollar as many times as possible. That was the beautiful thing about yesterday when I did my pop-up. The gentleman based the cartel, big up, big base, and he pretty much had brought maybe about 7 to 10 vendors under one roof out in front of the AT&T store in our military, and we were all there, helping, kind of, spearheading each other on, and kind of making sure that, people, hey, if they got these sneakers, I need you to go down there and check that guy out because he's got a shirt that'll match those sneakers.
Yeah.
Or better, you bought a shirt from here. I saw a pair of shades that guy has, and we were all circulating. We were completely different businesses, but we were all there helping each other out. So therefore, that's what it's all about. Trying to turn it over as much as possible.
Yeah. Somebody with no talent, but you got a coach that's willing to invest time in that young person.
Absolutely.
Because they could offer him something.
Yeah, bro.
So, in the book, I think Uncle G is my favorite character. I think I kind of alluded to that already, kind of comparing it to my uncle. Who's your favorite character? If you have one.
Man, you know what? It's a toss-up between, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, with the auntie,
okay,
and Cat.
Okay.
The auntie, you have no idea what you just said about your uncle.
My uncle and my aunt. Yeah.
Yeah, about her. Man, you'll have, when Watch Her Grow is a spinoff I'm working on. She always, in my mind, she had a story.
Okay.
And her story, what she been through, is crazy. And amazing. And Watch Her Grow is gonna follow Kat.
Okay.
And the auntie is her mentor. You know, they started off really rough.
Right, it was kind of hectic.
That's because she didn't know. You thought with CJ and Uncle G, he didn't know, CJ didn't know Uncle G.
Right.
Cat really don't know. And Uncle G, when they were getting into it, and I believe when they were down at the hospital in San Diego, and she was saying, he was telling CJ, your aunt gonna be all right. And he was like, you know, well, Cat, you know, I know she from
about it too.
Yeah, she about it. And your Uncle G was like, believe me, she got this. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
so her story and her mentorship, you know, is gonna come out, and she has an amazing story. And my heart and passion is with working with women and helping develop and filling the gap of a man that might or might not have been in their lives or whatever. So a passion of mine is working directly with at-risk young ladies. And so those two women in the book, in the story, is and so it's my favorite, I guess, because I'm working on it,
right,
and they're developing, and you know, I can't wait for her stories to come out and help encourage some people. So.
Okay, all right, so stay tuned. As you can see, this is not the only ones. There's more coming behind it, so that's what you want to hear, that's what you want to see. All right.
And Uncle G, that's Geronimo.
Okay, right.
And CJ is Che Jr., which is I named them after Guevara, Che Guevara, so the activist. So everybody, Geronimo Pratt, you know, Black Panthers. I try to make sure everybody has some type of name that means something significant.
Okay, so let's go with that. As I was reading the book, since you were talking about, you know, past influence as far as, you know, kind of using those names to, you know, tack onto the characters, I kind of always felt like there was this element of your past coming and get you, or you can't outrun your past. Your past is always going to come back.
Yeah.
Is that a lesson that you meant to impart in the story, or is that just something I pulled out of it, I guess?
No, definitely with CJ, I definitely wanted that to be part of the storyline, because we are always dealing with the past. I was talking to a young lady at work the other day, and I was telling her, you know, she had an issue with somebody, and it was getting to the point to where, you know, there's restraining orders, this and the other, and, you know, we always talked about building and her going on and doing this and working with young women, and us maybe working together outside of work one day and stuff. And I was like, man, your words that you're saying right now, what you're gonna do to her if something happens and you see her and this, that. I said, you're speaking life and death. And your body doesn't know, your mind doesn't know that you're not, when you're talking, you're picturing her in your head and you're saying these words, when your mind is consuming those things, when you see her, it's gonna come, your mind is like a computer. It just recognizes facial recognition, AR in your head, and all the feelings and things that you're saying are gonna come up to a point you might not be able to hold back your fist. And your past that you're talking about, whatever happened, you know, will catch up with you in a real way. But at the same time, it's not to be afraid of those past mistakes. Not everything ends in death. Not everything ends in you losing. You know, your past may catch up to you, but that's part of your process and ingredients in winning also, and developing into whoever God is gonna have you to be. So embracing the past and correcting the past and dealing with it that's gonna come up. And what I was telling her was the strong man. Your past is all the things you might have done wrong, and all the things you might have done in the flesh is part of the strong man within each and every one of us. And my pastor used to tell me the strong man never dies. He's just underground, buried with a straw, just waiting for that day.